Hello, welcome to Business and Life Advice with Ataande Advisors. My name is Ataande. I'm the CEO of Ataande Advisors, and I will be the one who will answer your questions. Here, you can ask anything business,
How would you recommend I develop these mini experts?
leadership,
What is the best way to be a female CEO?
self-development.
Where do you kind of like go to gain those experiences or to find your ideas?
I mean, it's something that I really pride myself in being able to kind of pace myself to do while I'm working on the business and just have other roles.
I love that we came full circle back to the educational styles. That's amazing.
You know your business best, you know your needs best. What is your first question you'd like to ask? So in this episode, I'm excited to bring to you Nayana. So we're going to talk about real estate business. She's amazing. She's also part of the Goldman Sachs program that I was a part of. And I can't wait to talk with her and hear a few of her insights and questions.
Hi, Chumbro. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Yourself?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
Mhm.
It's always fun to chat with you. The advising that you give along.
Thanks.
So I am Nayana Mehta. I am the founder and CEO of Strand Consulting Corporation. In Strand Consulting Corporation, we create a lot of placement drawings in 2D and 3D. And we do those, a lot of them in steel detailing, rebar detailing, as well as in Tekla and Revit software. We're getting a lot of pre-design and post-design traction in today's day and age, where civil engineering is becoming to be a little bit of a problem, or less people over here. So that's my small introduction.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. And I would love to start off with your first question. Or what are you thinking about?
Right. So my first question to you, Vachumbro, would be, I know when I started the business, I didn't have that much advising. I know that a lot of people out there like me. And we always hear that, you should start your businesses in Delaware or register in Delaware. Can you throw some light on why businesses as a startup should go there or not go there for any reason?
Okay, so that's a phenomenal question. Yes, you're correct. It's often recommended to register in Delaware. One of the reasons why we would say register in Delaware, Delaware is in many ways the home of corporations, right? The home of corporations. And when something becomes a home or it's one of the dominant industries is incorporating or having businesses headquartered there, now there's a whole industry that is supporting that in Delaware, right? So Delaware, you have a great legal structure. So that means the justices, the courts, really understand intricate business matters. So if you're ever sued and you have to go to a court case in Delaware, you know that the judges will understand business law and business in general. So that's one safety provision, right? You want to be with a judge that actually knows what's going on in business and
What goes on? Right. I understand. Okay.
so
That makes sense.
that's one of the major reasons. Other reasons as well are investors. A lot of investors, a lot of outside parties, they trust it because so much business is done there. It's not, hey, let's go to West Virginia or let's go to Louisiana, which is under a very different regulatory system. So it's also known as if you want to do deals with people, if you want investments, etc. Because so much is done through Delaware, it becomes easier for people to want to do business with you if you're investing.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Okay, so for students that or new entrepreneurs that are out there, it matters. What you are saying is what state you register your business. If you want to strategically grow and go somewhere, or in the future want some kind of seed money or investment or something,
Mhm.
then you definitely should look at in a state that is much more, or the judges and the whole law system is much more aware about the ongoing situations
Exactly.
about the law.
Exactly. But in the US, and I really want to preface with this is not legal advice, this is for educational purposes only. In much of the US, you can incorporate there. It's okay. Like I have businesses incorporated Delaware, I have businesses incorporated in New York, right? So it's okay to incorporate. New York knows what it's doing, right? New York knows what it's doing. You're fine with corporate. You still can get investment if you incorporate in New York. It just depends on how what you want to do. If you incorporate with Delaware, you still have to register your business in the state you're doing business. So if you're operating out of New York, but you're registered in Delaware, you still have to register in New York. You also have to have a registered agent in Delaware. The good thing, as I said, Delaware has industry is very mature around this. So they have registered agents, they have companies that will do that and take on your documents for you. All right.
Okay, gotcha. All right. So, since we are saying on this same topic, I was wondering, as a new person who is in the business recently, I know that there is a case going on in Delaware which involves uh, the Tesla person, and they are trying to see if they can move to Texas. Is that something like, so even, and that's where it happens, even you're moving from Delaware to Texas or somewhere else, what you're saying is the incorporation does happen over there.
Okay, so I'm not familiar with this case, but I actually think I know why they might want to move to Texas. Long story short, the board, I believe, granted Elon Musk some shares, right? Some shares because he hit certain metrics. And some of the shareholders went and sued him or sued to say, hey, he shouldn't be granted the shares. This is too much. And the court actually said it's too much. So I think it's more so because they're upset that the court ruled that way that they want to move it to Texas and not deal with that. They felt that that was going across against some case precedent, which means previous cases and previous rulings, and it wasn't right. So they want to move it to different jurisdiction. They're like,
Okay.
so that's probably
That's how
what
you think it went. Okay, I also agree with you on that aspect. Of course, we were reading some articles,
Mhm.
but to new entrepreneurs, it's not like, so you have to really pick and choose what exactly you want to do when you are kind of starting your own business, so that you can pick the proper way and place of doing, or get some proper advising if you
Mhm.
have this plan in place before starting it.
Yeah, and depending on how you're structured, it can be pretty simple to switch states. So it's not something that you're locked into. I would say you want to be cash conscious. Once again, this is not legal advice. I'm tapping into both my legal and my business brain. But when you're starting off, you do want to be cash conscious in terms of if you're registering more than one, that may have additional cost, right? Plus, you may have to have an agent. So maybe it makes more sense to be registered in your home state. And then when you're getting investors, or when you want to make a move and you're figuring you have the money, you can go hire an attorney, or maybe if you know how to do it, you'll do it yourself, and you can go change states or switch jurisdictions or do something or do an acquisition or reverse merger, something right along that way. So you don't have to be locked in with your first decision. The only thing I'll say to make sure is having your operating agreement really secure, or your bylaws and charter agreement if you are a C corp, because depending on how that structure is going to change what you have to do in order to change jurisdictions or change where you're incorporated.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, that's really good advice. Another question always that comes to mind with people is about C Corp and S Corp. Do you have anything like a best practice recommendation as to when people start off the business, or even like, maybe 7 years down the road, should they stay as S Corp if they are, or should they move to C Corp, or is there any best practices in your mind?
Once, not legal advice, not legal advice, but I'll say this. So you want to look at a C corp if you think you're going to have a lot of shareholders, right? Because S corp, I believe you're limited to 100 shareholders. C corp, you can have unlimited. You're only limited by the number of shares, right? S corp, you may also be limited in terms of whether your shareholders, meaning the owners who also have equity in the business, or the partners who also have equity in the business, whether they are potentially on their immigration status. So I'm not going to dive too much into this, but there may be other legal restrictions on who you can have within the company as an owner, as an S corp, where there are less restrictions when you're a C corp, and then you can have a lot more shareholders. Also, it's easier for people to switch. It's easier for people to sell assets or sell shares, because they can sell a share without you having to reorganize. Hey, this person owns this person owns that. So those are the things you may want to think about. But then there are tax considerations. So when you're S corp, there's caveats to it, but you're seen as a pass-through entity, right? So there's not double taxation. Versus when you're C corp, there is double taxation, which means the corporation gets taxed, and then you get taxed when you get the money as well. So that is, you're being double taxed then. So those are some things to think about.
Yeah, that's great information. I'm sure that will be very helpful to me, of course, and to whoever are listening over there.
Mhm.
So, having said that, maybe I can tap into some other consultation issues moving from the corporation formations. Is
So,
another thing is negotiation. When
mhm.
you're negotiating with some of the customers as a business, what do you give the most value to? Would you give more value to cost, or what is it that you would also, draw back from? Would you put your prices down, or just knowing that you might not be able to go and get a deal out of the person, even though the person is good and everything else is all right?
Mhm. That's a phenomenal question. That is a phenomenal question.
Thank you.
I, I think, first of all, always have the easiest black and white thing to say is always have your red lines, meaning things you will not do no matter what, right?
Mhm.
So this can be monetarily, meaning that you're not going to take more than X% loss, or you have to have X% profit, right? Or things you would do ethically, or things that may be outside your scope, and you're like, hey, I don't want to work on this type of things because I don't have experience, or because I don't want to work with this type of person. So that's always have your red lines. That makes everything easier. Other
Mhm.
than that, it depends on your vision and depends on your sequence, meaning what time are you within the business? There are things you may do earlier in the business that you wouldn't do later. There's things you may do later that you wouldn't do earlier. So, for example, when we started Uplift Communities, we started and we did some free workshops. So no cost, right? We're negotiating no cost, and we're able to do that. We're taking on the course. We're going out. We're putting things out. And because at that time we valued our reputation and we valued building credibility more than we valued the money, right? We
Mhm.
needed the money. We
Yeah.
wanted the money, but we wanted to build that credibility. And
Uh,
unfortunately, the industry we're in government contracting, it's kind of like if they don't know you, even if you come from the private industry, it's very hard to get inside. So
Yes.
it took us doing few free consultations, and then also doing some subcontracting. And once people started seeing us and seeing us within their circles, then they start saying, okay, this is a good company to work with. So those
Mhm.
are some things to think about. Other than that, in negotiating with price, there's a difference between price and value, right? How much you're
Mhm.
paying for something versus what you're getting from it, right? So
Mhm.
understanding that, I think if you gave me a scenario, I know you don't want to share anything confidential. We can dive deeper into that.
Understand. So coming in from a real estate market, you know that whether it be a private or a public company, you always have to go into bidding,
Hmm.
right? So whenever there are biddings, it's always like a low cost.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
you cannot sell value to a government company unless they have some kind of a fallback, saying that okay, so we can bring value that this person has always finished the projects,
Hmm.
whatever has been taken on time, on schedule, which is very important.
Yeah.
But that is not something that people change, things change, is not something you can be the first thing. So the first thing always comes down to the cost,
Hmm.
right? And especially in the construction industry, it is the lowest bidder,
Hmm.
right? And that's where I stand, like, yes, we can bring more value, but cost matters.
Hmm.
What do you think?
I think that's important. Unfortunately, sometimes I was just having a discussion with somebody where they feel that their values don't align with what one of their clients want,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they one of their values is excellence, right? Bringing a lot of value, but this person wants cheap and fast, right? Or this entity wants cheap and fast.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they don't realize if the cheaper you get, the it's not going to be as fast either. So
Yeah.
they're feeling that conflict, right? And I think how I look at this is you have to say, okay, I won't do it below this minimum price, right? I won't do it below this minimum price, and I won't do it if it's this type of job. That means you're going to have to let go of some things.
Mm.
That means you're going to have to let go of some things. However, if you do it that way, what you'll see sometimes, and this is why we have project overruns, right? The government will think something costs one thing, and then now it turned from $100 million contract into $1 billion contract. Now there's other things that's going on probably in there as well, but
Yes.
there is these things that occur also,
Uh-huh.
right? There's these things that occur also. I would say, depending on the price you're going for, New York City just raised their discretionary funding to 1.5 million,
Mm-hmm.
right? So then
Yeah.
you're not in necessarily a low bid contest. Granted, you're in real estate, so 1.5 million may not be a lot to you, right? 1.5 million. You were going to say something. 1.5 million. So then that can allow you more to do something within your quality bandwidth, right?
Uh-huh.
Hopefully building up references and people that vouch for you. Like, hey, look, they may not be the lowest bidder, but they're going to make sure you look good, right? One of the things I'm trying to understand lately is, what do government officials really care about? Because I'm like you, I care about quality. I like to
Yes.
do things at a certain quality. I'm not trying to be the low cost provider. I want to do things really well. However, that's not necessarily what people always want. So I believe over the long term, showing quality is going to help me rise to the top. I may miss out on a few things or many things, but eventually it's going to look, when they look at uplift communities, when they look at Ataande Advisors, that'll help us move forward.
Mm.
But you can put together a series of $1.5 million contracts. Being an MWBE gives you, have you been certified as an MWBE yet in New York
Yes, we
City?
have been certified as MWBE in almost 5 of the government organizations, including New
Wonderful.
York State, SCA, and MTA.
Okay, great, great. So that also should give you a leg up and some set asides as well. So that's something I would say to look for as the city's trying to hit their quota. I think it's 30%.
Uh-huh.
Even though they don't, sometimes they're doing well. They just said they're doing well in terms of monetary, but not on contracts. So that should be some set asides where they may not look at the lowest bid for you, but because you're MWBE or
Mhm.
WBE, they'll be able to maybe
Kind of
change
give
it
us.
around.
Correct, correct, correct. I think that's a lovely, those 4 pointers or the red lines that you gave. I think you were really much on the dot as to what exactly should a person look for when they are looking at the value and sitting on the negotiation table. So that was really good advice. Thank you. I appreciate about that.
That's my pleasure.
Um, yeah. Another problems, if there are young budding women that face out there, is getting into the PRO field.
Mhm.
What I mean by that is, when we are in a business, you tend to develop close connections, close relationships. PRO comes in the picture, like personal. So are there some kind of pointers or best practices that people should get into when they are dealing with other customers, or trying to convert the leads into customers,
Thank you.
even though from content is one of the aspects. Yeah.
Can you tell me what PRO means?
Personal relationships, right? O stands for officer, or whatever.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I
If
didn't
I
know.
hire a personal relations officer or a person, usually, like when somebody is new in the business, they always have this idea as to how do you go around, meeting customers. You go for, we go for dinners or something. But is there any more best practices that people can follow in your mind?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Lara, I had my last was with Lara. She asked a similar question, like, "How do women?" And I said, "I'm not a woman, so I would say I know." But one of the things I really think, especially with the landmines that can be related to this, right? Dinners and going out, and or great things, is having a good circle that can tell you about who you tell you more about who you're meeting, right?
Ah,
So, hey, what are this person's intentions? Have you met with this person, right? Before, how do they treat other women? Do they do business with women, right? And so you can kind of have that secret network that can feed you information. You can share other people. You can share information with. Hey, watch out for him. Watch out for her, etc. Or this is a really good guy, right? This is a really good woman. So these things, I would say, that network where you can ask people, hey, I'm going to have dinner with this person. We're going to discuss X, Y, Z. I've seen certain things, but that says, hey, women may want to approach it this way, but that's not my expertise. I wouldn't say that's
right,
my
right.
expertise.
No, absolutely. I think this is a great idea where, if you're going to meet somebody, like I'm going to meet somebody tomorrow in Connecticut, right?
Hmm.
I'm taking with some of my team.
Hmm.
And if I would have kind of just done some homework about, or meet somebody or call somebody up to find out, I would definitely get, some people are willing to share the information. I would definitely have gotten some more information about the person and how to tackle any situations or any circumstances that might come the way, or even conversational wise, there are different cultures that we come across,
Yeah.
right? And different things mean different things in different cultures, even languages. Like some words mean very different in one culture as against the other. So I
Mhm.
think that is a really good suggestion that somebody who is listening to this podcast would love to kind of understand and talk about.
Thank you.
Yeah. So another thing, let me go and ask some questions about the attorney point of view.
Okay.
I know that, yeah, I know that I talk a lot about international businesses,
Hmm.
and people always have this cost where they worry whether they're going to get the money back. Like, being the attorney costs so high within the US. Is there any, like, best practice you would suggest small businesses from attorney point of
From a attorney point of view, so one of the things, and people, you're asking a lot of good questions. One of the things I think people want to look for into making sure you have the right attorney for the job. Some people just want to ask me, I'm not that a type of attorney. I don't know that type of law. So making sure you understand the type of law you need, or going to an attorney and say, hey, who should I talk to in this field? Or I have this type of problem. What type of attorney should I work with? Right.
view?
So there's attorneys that focus in international arbitration. So that's something you want to make, like international trade, right? Uh,
Or
intellectual.
even regular, like even if it is within the country, people are always like, they worry before going to the attorney, and it's like the last resort. When I just saw in my doctor's office, don't wait till you always never say never, or something along the line, and we always wait till that point till we call up the attorney, which happened to me recently.
Mhm.
It always happens. We have customer that we have been working. It's a huge project going on for 3 years now, and the person somehow defaulted, and we had to go the lien route. Now there are other customers that work with the same person, and they have been telling me, Nayana, you need to do this now. You need to do this now, right? But coming from some background, some
Yeah.
loyalty, not just like walking over people kind of a concept,
Mhm.
you kind of wait till the last minute.
Yeah, I would say letting your attorney know earlier than later. You don't necessarily need to file something, but let your attorney know, hey, this is what's going on. Especially, you're talking about transactional law, right? Commercial transaction,
Right.
transaction
It
law.
can be contract or transactional law or
Yeah,
anything related to business,
yeah, contract.
right? Or labor law, whatever it might be,
Mhm.
right?
Right. So labor law, contract law, business related law. So when you're doing that, one of the things, especially if the person is well known, they know industry practices, right?
Mm,
So if
yes.
you're a new company, going to somebody who has a lot of experience in this, who knows industry practice, they can know when something's fishy, right? When something's not right, even before you do, and say, hey, okay, you know what? You should give them another month, or no, we should pursue this now, because you never know. Sometimes if they go in, company goes into bankruptcy, depending on the order you filed, may determine your priority, right? As one of the people who they owe a debt towards. So those are some things that attorneys can guide you. Don't just look at them as executors. Look at them as people who are advisors and can also help you out with a strategy as
Mm,
well, at least the really good ones. So I'll say
yes.
that's something to think about. Finally, just not if you're doing cross-state work, which you're doing, let's say New York and New Jersey, you may, especially contractual law, contract law is state specific. So if
Mm,
something has to deal with maybe a party in another state, or the work was doing done, your attorney from your state may not be the best person to handle the case. They may know somebody else in another state who they can refer to you and say, hey, you should go talk to this person because this law is very specific for this state. Okay.
so are you saying that, supposing if you are registered in New York and I'm working for some job or company that is in Florida, then the law of the Florida becomes applicable based on where the customer is located, not where the project is located?
It depends. It might be where the project is located. It depends. There's several
Depends.
things that tie. It may be where the project's located. It may be where the majority of work is consummated,
Uh,
right? So let's say it's like a 50 40 project, maybe where the 50% is, it'll be there. So it really depends. And this is where your attorney would be able to say, hey, I think
correct.
you should talk to XYZ person.
Oh, lovely. I think that's a great advice because, in today's day and age, we do operate, so, especially in the service industry, you might operate in more than one state
Mhm.
compared to, like, just being restricting to one state, especially in this area because New York, New Jersey, Connecticut is so much interrelated and
Exactly.
so much coming together that we
Exactly.
don't separate them out. They belong to all
That's true.
under the one banner, and you can go anywhere that you feel like going.
That's very
That's a
true.
great advice. Thank you so much. I appreciate that help.
My pleasure.
And then I think the last one you told me was content creation. That is something that is very close to your heart.
Mhm.
So tell me, how much is too much?
So I always think it starts with brand strategy, right? It starts with brand strategy. So what do you branding is the vision you have for the company, right? The visions and guidelines around what you will do and what you don't won't do, what you stand for and what you don't stand for. So it starts with that. And then after that is who's your target customer. Because it's not what's too much, it's what's too much for your target customer, right?
Mm.
So that's those are some frames that we want to think about, right?
Oh,
Finally, is how much will it take, or how much content will it take to actually reach them? Because we're not going to assume that they're already in your network, right? For the most part,
right.
maybe you want to reach new customers. So what will it take to reach them,
Mm-hmm.
right? And putting things out, and what's your style? So I would say, so I think this still applies. So Gary Vee has a concept which he calls jab, 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 right hook or uppercut, right? So he's saying just give people value, 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 or just something light, and then you make an ask, right?
Mm.
So instead of thinking about how much just too much content, what is the right mix of content, right? What is the
Mm.
right mix of content? So you're not always making an ask because that gets annoying. Right? If
Yeah,
you're just making an ask, maybe you have a more playful vibe, right? So you're sharing some behind the scenes. This is what we do when we look through things. This is how we evaluate things. This is some fun things to know about our team, right?
hmm,
And then that's like, oh, people may consume that more, and you're turning it into, I don't want to say a reality show, but let's think of a business reality show is an interesting way to think about it. And some people are hooked on reality shows. So you can think about it this way. But it depends on your brand strategy, right?
understood.
It,
Yeah.
dep- it does.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, when I started doing some content creation, when I started talking more like about the eclipse, which has nothing to do with my business, I got a lot of analytical questions and people like started paying attention to it.
Mhm.
And because it was like, and more people as the days came nearby, I spoke about it a little bit earlier, but as the days it became a lot of hot topic, and people could associate, maybe I was hoping could associate it to Strand. Oh, she said that over there, kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
So I agree with you that content doesn't necessarily have to be about it. It can be a lot about the storytelling.
And you're sometimes it's just keeping yourself top of mind, right? So sometimes it's not necessarily it's not connected, but because they thought of you and they were just doing something that relates to a contract you can win. Hey, you just came across my mind. It's not related, but it sparked a connection. So there's several things you can do there.
Correct. I think so. That's wonderful. I think there's a little bit of time or no time left. So last question I would ask is, since you are you're like a business coaching person, what is it that the top three things you would tell anybody who is in the new startup business, as against somebody who has been in business for 10 years, that they can pay attention to?
So would you say three things each for the new person versus three things for the
Yeah,
person?
just bullets, if you can, or even two,
Mhm.
whatever makes you comfortable.
Okay. Let me start with the person who's been in business for a while. I would say make sure you are studying your industry top to bottom. And that applies to new people too, but make sure you're studying your industry top to bottom. And what I mean by that, know the ins and outs of it because it helps you see opportunity. A
Mhm.
lot what happens, and I one of the reasons I started this is I see a lot of small businesses stuck in like the small business or solo founder trap where they're not really getting past maybe 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, 400,000, right? And they're just stuck there and they can't really push the needle. So it's the business has hit a ceiling, right?
Mhm.
Right. And I see that if you dive really into the details, it may be frustrating, it may be annoying, but you'll start seeing new opportunities or new ways to look at things. And that'll help you hit that next level, right? Really knowing a lot what happens in business comes from an information edge. So having better information and being able to act on that information.
That's
I would
good
also,
advice.
I would also say work on delegating, especially work on delegating, not not abdicating. So what do I mean by that? when you delegate or when you give somebody your job, this is something I used to, there's certain things I hated. And finally, when I had some money, it's like, okay, I'm hiring somebody. I don't have to care about this anymore, right? I don't have to care about this anymore. But when you delegate and abdicate, meaning you leave it all, things go wrong unless it's the perfect person, right? So you have to delegate, and then still you're watching it, you're checking in, you're reporting, you're training people, you're coaching them along, you're doing side by sides, and that's how you finally get to the place where you don't have to watch the person as much anymore. But you can't just leave it alone. You have to really give them that hard training, that mentorship, that coaching, that oversight. That's really what's going to stretch yourself out, right?
Yes. Yeah. That's a good one. Mm-hmm.
And then finally, on the existing business, collaborate, collaborate, collaborate. I think people often don't understand how much the large companies are collaborating, and people think we have to fight each other, right? We have to
Mm-hmm.
no, just find some people who have good intentions. You have to test people's intentions, right?
Yeah.
Good intentions, and learn to collaborate or partner and share information, right? That's how you're both going to grow. We can only do so much by ourselves. We need to work with other people. We need to share information. We need to exchange value, right? And sometimes setting somebody up to know, hey, I can't win this contract, or I might be able, but I think you're in a better position. Let me push you, give you a push so you can win it. And hopefully next time you'll be able to give me a push. And learning to have that symbiotic relationship where sometimes you may have to take a step back to give somebody else a push, hoping in the future that they'll also, or being direct, like, hey, I would like you to give me a push in the future as well. So I think those are three things that will help people hit that next level of business.
Right.
What I would say to new entrepreneurs, it's a lot harder than Instagram and social media makes it to be. It's okay. And that's okay. It's not the success in 60 seconds or success in 1 year, even sometimes success in 2 years. That it's a hard path, and that is okay. It doesn't necessarily mean you're doing anything wrong. And when I say wrong, you'll find things you're like, oh man, I should have done it better. But that's part of the process. You're learning, right? That's the path
Uh-huh.
that was learning. Get a coach or mentor. Reach out to somebody who's already in that field, doing it well, and find some way to add value to them so that they're willing to share with you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Uh,
Yes.
and invest in yourself. Don't think your education stopped at school. You
Mm.
should be spending money and investing in ways to learn, whether that's going to conferences, whether that's reading books, whether that's talking to coaches, whatever you're doing, you should be investing and continue investing, because the best returns actually happen when you continue to invest after school. And I say this as somebody, I still spend probably college tuition on my education to yearly, right? And I'm saying that because we have to do this, right? This is how we continue to get better.
Correct, correct. I absolutely agree with you because I'm, of course, not in the startup field anymore. But, I also tell the young girls the same thing that, if you take it up, you need to have the passion for it if you really want to go ahead.
Mhm.
And, just be on top of it. And at some time, it really does work.
Mhm.
It does work. And that's what all America is about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. We have so much opportunity. We both, I think, migrated here, right? There's so much opportunity here, and people will kill to have some of that opportunity. Let me not say kill. That's a bit drastic. People, people really would. There's some people without light. There's some people without running water. There's some people without quality education, etc. That would wish, or without jobs. There's so many countries. The what you
Education
call
is not at the prime.
and unemployment rate is so high. So there's opportunity. We just be hungry and really go and take your chance, because it doesn't last. Opportunity does not last.
No, it doesn't. Yeah. When it comes, you go after it, and definitely there is something in it for you.
Mhm.
That's a really great advice. I think you really nailed down on negotiations and international law, as well as the attorney that you truly are within. So thank you for your time, and thank you for having me on the show and answering wonderful questions for me.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to see your success and see you as one of the biggest primes in New York City, and hopefully even bigger than that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay. See you. Have a good one. Good
Thank
evening, Chambaro.
you. Good evening.